Hi there. Welcome to Afro Perspectives. Trump at last has ordered Kagame to leave the DRC. On the 25th of April 2025, a significant development, at least from the perspective of those following the Rwandan invasion of the DRC, are concerned. President Trump has basically told the Rwandans to leave the DRC. So how did we get here? First, Kagame met Tshisekedi in Doha in Qatar on the 19th of March. Kagame at that juncture insisted that besides Rwanda's direct talks with President Tshisekedi, he wanted talks between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the rebel group, the M23, and insisted that the M23 were key to addressing the root causes of the conflict. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Ahmad Al Thani, described Qatar as a strategic ally of both the DRC and Rwanda. One might want to ask, why is Qatar involved at all? What's at stake? What is in it for the Qataris? I will first start with Qatari investments in Rwanda. Qatar Airlines holds almost half of Rwanda's shares in Rwanda state-owned airline Rwanda Air, and has a 60% stake in Bugesera International Airport near Rwanda's capital Kigali. Bugesera Airport Company, the company building a new international airport south of Kigali, is what the Rwandans plan for the future. With an investment of at least $2 billion in American dollars, this is Qatar's largest investment in Africa. In 2021, the Qatar Financial Center and Rwanda Finance Limited signed a memorandum of understanding to boost cooperation between the two nations in terms of international development. Then there is also Qatari investments in the DRC. Qatar has signed agreements with the DRC for the construction and financing for Njili International Airport in Kinshasa, as well as Ndolo Airport in Kinshasa as well. And then there is the financing for Luano Airport in Lubumbashi. Qatar is also involved in efforts to modernize the port of Matadi in DRC's Congo Central province in the western part of the DRC. Then there is Boma, another port along the Congo River, which is also being modernized by the Qataris. Qatar has also invested in the Congolese post and telecommunications company known as SCPT in French. Qatar Airways has signed a Qatar DRC partnership project relating to the support of the Congolese state through partnership. On the 1st of June 2024, Qatar Airways launched its first flight to Njili Airport in Kinshasa. As you can see, Qatar has a lot at stake in both Rwanda and the DRC. Put another way, both Kagame and Tshisekedi have reasons to listen to the Qataris. Their two horses belong to the same master. In turn, the Qataris are a strategic partner to the Americans. So this in some ways sums up how the US is pulling the strings for the Qataris to lay the groundwork for later American intervention in the Great Lakes region. So on the 25th of April in Washington, D.C., the State Department convened a meeting between the Foreign Minister for Rwanda, Olivier Nduhungirehe, and the Foreign Minister for the DRC, Therese Kayikwamba Wagner, and the Declaration of Principles essentially contains of these elements, and it talks of recognizing borders and acknowledging each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And then it talks of both Rwanda and the DRC refraining from actions or rhetoric that threatens or questions the validity of these borders. This is basically a win for the DRC because it is the victim of external aggression from Rwanda and its allies, the M23 and the Congo River Alliance. Then the principles of Declaration of Principles talk of Rwanda ceasing its support for the M23 and the DRC ceasing its support for the FDLR, that is the Hutu extremist. And then it talks of limiting the proliferation of non-state armed groups within and across their borders, and the both countries to commit to refraining from providing state military support to non-state armed groups. Here we are talking of, as I have said, the M23 and the Hutu extremists, the FDLR on the DRC spot. So where does this leave the M23? The principles of declaration talks of establishment of a joint security coordination mechanism to counter non-state armed groups and criminal organizations that threaten the participants' legitimate security concerns. And then the other issue is resource looting. The principles of declaration talk of ensuring both participants prosper from the region's natural resources through mutually beneficial partnerships and investment opportunities. Here we are talking about the resources that are found in Eastern Congo, such as gold, coltan, cassiterite, and these have principally been the M23's source of funding. They have been the M23 looting mineral resources from the eastern part of the DRC and shipping them through Rwanda and then exporting them to the rest of the world. So here we are. So this, in a sense, is a triumph of American interest. And the principles of declaration talk of the launch or expansion of significant investments, including those facilitated by the U.S. government and the U.S. private sector. Here we are talking of the agreement between the President Tshisekedi's government and the U.S. government for the American private sector, American private companies accessing mineral resources, especially in Katanga province in the eastern part of the DRC. But for that to happen, the eastern Congo has to be conflict-free. That is the withdrawal of the M23 and the withdrawal of the Rwandans. And then the declaration of principles talks of de-risking of mineral supply chains and transparent, formalized and licit end-to-end mineral value chains. And then it talks of linking both countries in partnership with the U.S. government and U.S. investors. So this is where American interest lies. Minerals in Eastern Congo, like I've said, minerals in Katanga. And it's a way of countering Chinese influence. The Chinese have, for the past 10 or 15 years, they have been granted mineral concessions in Katanga and in provinces such as the two Kivu provinces in eastern DRC. But they are also traced to the DRC. And here I'm talking of the agreement that the DRC has to facilitate the safe and voluntary return of internally displaced persons to their original places of residence in eastern DRC. The agreement talks of the DR citizens who have been displaced by conflict and currently reside in Rwanda or other countries in a manner consistent with their international legal obligation. Here, the threat lies in the sense that, like, Rwanda has claimed it has close to 500,000 of DRC citizens who have fled eastern DRC. But DRC officials in 2012 and at some point in, I think in 2013, they actually went to Kigali and they could find no people of Congolese origin who have fled into Rwanda. Congo is so vast, so even right now there is conflict in in Goma and parts of South Kivu. And those people, they are not fleeing to Rwanda. They are fleeing to the western part of the DRC, Kinshasa to be precise. And there they can find sanctuary there. And then I do not understand where this Rwanda here, it has been claimed that Rwanda has a plan to flood the two Kuji provinces with its own citizens. And here, what the plan is for the Rwandans to use mechanisms like this to change the balance of population in the two Kivus and then claim autonomy at some point for these provinces. And then once you have that, because those citizens are essentially Rwandan, they will vote for autonomy. And this is the threat to the DRC. And then there is talk of the withdrawal of the M23. The declaration of principles talk of the government of Rwanda and the M23 and its allies, the River Congolese Alliance, known as AFC in French. And in cooperation and consultation with the US government, Rwanda has been given until the 2nd of May to withdraw its troops and come out with a proper peace plan. So there you have it. Until the 2nd of May, that is only about like 7 days from now, they have to, the Rwandans, especially both the DRC, they have to agree to a peace plan. They have only been given a week. So the Americans are really focused on getting something done about the conflict in the east of Congo. So where does this leave the M23? First, as I have explained earlier on, Rwanda has been ordered to recognize the territorial integrity of the DRC and end its support for the M23. As in 2013, we are likely to see a withdrawal of the M23 from Goma, Bukavu, and other areas it occupies in North and South Kivu. The immediate reaction of the Rwandan government has been a surprise, to say the least. Unlike in previous efforts to end Rwanda meddling in eastern DRC, where Kagame has insisted that he had nothing to do with the M23, this time Rwanda is meekly repeating what's contained in the Declaration of Principles. Immediately after the signing of the Declaration of Principles, Rwanda's Foreign Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe stated, "Today we are talking about real issues, the root causes that must be addressed to achieve a lasting peace in our region. These include first and foremost security as well as the return of refugees. Our goal is a secure region free of violent ethnic extremism, which is well governed. Working together, our region can be a engine of prosperity for all our peoples and indeed Africa as a whole." So there you have it. That's the foreign minister of Rwanda. And then he goes on to say, the Declaration of Principles opens the door to a definitive peace agreement, giving fresh impetus to ongoing efforts of African-led process under the East African Community, Southern African Development Community, as well as the Doha track. That is the meeting that was held between Kagame and Tshisekedi earlier on in March in Doha, facilitated by the state of Qatar, where we have seen important breakthroughs in recent days. So here we are. Gone is the arrogance characteristic of Rwandan attitudes towards the Congolese. They are now in a submissive mode, reading peace declarations like loyal scribes. Funny how the no Rwanda troops in DRC narrative has evaporated, and so now we have Kagame listening to his real masters, deciding to, now that they have decided to dump him and tell him what to do in blunt terms, Kagame is dancing to the tune of those who wield real power, in this case President Donald Trump. Kagame has always insisted that there are no Rwandan troops in eastern DRC, yet somehow we are now told he has to withdraw the troops. That is in itself is a humiliating climb down. Kagame has for the past 25 plus years called the M23 a Congolese problem. Now his foreign minister is pledging to withdraw foreign troops. Which ones exactly? but then the other related question is it possible to have peace without accountability? In my humble opinion, for any real peace to stick, there ought to be accountability. Rwanda cannot simply withdraw from Eastern DRC, ignoring the loss of life, the pain its adventure in Eastern DRC has caused. Justice in all its forms, procedural, historical, and moral, for the millions of Congolese people who have been victims of wanton killings, rape, murder, and looting. And in this sense, there have to be some form of redress. So now the flip side of the coin is that besides the Congolese scoring some important victories in terms of the M23 withdrawing and the Rwandans stopping their interference in Eastern Congo, the real winner in all this seem to be the Americans. In terms of what has been agreed behind the scenes anyway, U.S. businesses would begin investing in the DRC's Congo, the DR Congo's lithium and other strategic minerals, and this agreement is expected to counter the Chinese dominance of in the DRC's abundant copper and cobalt resources. There is a startup company called Cobalt Metals, backed by Bill Gates, and it wants to invest in somewhere in the Eastern Congo, I think the province of Manono, and it wants to exploit lithium deposits. And then there is another American company, US-based Orion Resources, plans also to invest in DRC, but it's not clear where exactly and what sort of minerals are at stake. Just take, for instance, the DRC's mineral deposits are estimated to be worth $2 trillion in US dollars, in American dollars. However, it's not only American companies that are going to benefit. Other companies, including Australian and Canadian companies, are likely to take advantage of the opening up of the Katanga province and the Eastern DRC to Western companies anyway. So if the M23 were to be neutralized and withdraw from Eastern DRC, we might end up with a situation where President Tshisekedi ends up consolidating his grip on power in the whole of the DRC. Tshisekedi is in his last term. He was elected in 2024 for a 5-year term. And in 2029, he is expected to hold elections, nominate a successor, and hand over to whoever has won the elections. But that's not what he's planning to do. His supporters are pushing for him to amend the constitution and stay in power beyond 2029. With the threat from the M23 gone, he might end up achieving his goal of establishing another Mobutu-style dictatorship. Thank you for listening in, and if you feel there is something I've missed or I've got wrong, please drop your comments in the box below. Thank you. Bye.